Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. One of the things that became apparent to me from this awful attack by a racist on Sikhs in Wisconsin was that Wade Michael Page, who was the shooter in that horrible event, was a member of the U.S. Army for several years at Fort Bragg. And there at Fort Bragg, according to the reports I saw on CNN, he learned about racism and white supremacy groups through his fellow buddies there at the Army base. Now, it's interesting that his mother-in-law, who he lived with for many years while he was growing up from a small age, said that this person, Wade Michael Page, as a racist, was completely unknown to her. He was a great little boy, cooperative, kind, loving, but then things changed when he was in the military there at Fort Bragg, evidently. So I'm here today to talk about this idea of Sikhs in the military. And it becomes apparent that the U.S. government and the U.S. Army needs to change their policy so that Sikhs may join the military wearing their full articles of faith and be integrated fully into the U.S. Army. Now, most of the world's militaries allow Sikhs to enlist and serve in the ranks of their militaries. India, the UK, Canada, all have Sikhs who serve with distinction and honor in their militaries. So why can't the US do that? Well, back in 1982, I tried to enlist in the US Army. And Ronald Reagan was president then. He changed the law. There was a long-standing rule that President Truman initiated where Sikhs were allowed to join the U.S. Army wearing their turban, their beard, and all articles of faith. So from 1948 until 1981, when Ronald Reagan got rid of that exemption, Sikhs served with honor and were decorated soldiers in the U.S. military. Now, why did that change? I believe that it was because at that time there was a lot of pressure by racist groups on Reagan to change the rules in the military so that Sikhs could not join. Now, this racist policy continued for 30-some years until now we've got this result where this disturbed person, Michael Wade Page, was not exposed to Sikhs in the military, and in fact he was around people that had racist and white supremacist attitudes. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience in trying to join the Army and some of those events in 1981-82 where other Sikhs were trying to join. And some Sikhs were already in the military, of course, because Truman had made the exemption in 1948. So here are some newspaper articles of those times. This man here, Avtar Singh is his name. He was already in the military. And this is an article in the Phoenix Gazette talking about his serving there in the military with distinction. This is a picture of Sikhs protesting in front of the Los Angeles Federal Building there in 1982 so that we could join the military. This was quite a big event in media coverage. Here is, again, this is December 7th, 1982, where Sikhs protested in front of the Federal Building. You can see signs here that say, "For God and Country." We were law-abiding citizens, and there was no reason why the military had to discriminate against Sikhs just because we were Sikhs and wanted to practice our religious beliefs. Here's another article, other articles, India Abroad. More articles here. This was a young man who was already in the military. His name was Graywall. He was a sergeant who actually taught biological warfare. And one of the excuses the military gave for not allowing us to join the military back there in 1982 was that Sikhs could not wear a gas mask over their beard. Well, it's interesting that Sergeant Graywall had been decorated by the U.S. Army many times over for his excellent instruction in chemical warfare, and he was completely able to attain a seal over his mask. So their excuses were very lame, to say the least, in the U.S. military. It was really all about an attitude of racism in the military back then. And sadly to say, I think it continues up to now. So I think it's really necessary, again, that the military integrate Sikhs into their ranks so we don't have another incident that happened with this Wade Michael Page and other white supremacists. Anyway, here's more pictures of protests in front of the federal building, TV coverage. This was at the Los Angeles Press Club here in December 1982. One press conference I had was with a young man who was trying to avoid the draft in the U.S. military. Back then in 1982, the draft was still in place, where people were drafted. So he was trying to avoid to get in the military, where I was trying to actually join, and they wouldn't have me. So that was a very interesting press conference. This is a picture of Lieutenant Gopal Singh, who was already in the military. And this is a letter from his commanding officer showing how he was such a wonderful soldier and decorated, and that Sikhs had served with honor. And there was no problem with discipline or any kind of ill feelings towards Sikhs from the other members or the other soldiers. That was another excuse the Army gave, was that Sikhs would cause a problem of discipline because of their looks, and that they wouldn't conform to the other soldiers. But these were commanding officers who wrote letters for Sikhs that were already in the military that disputed that claim and said that the Sikhs were not a problem wearing their turban and beards. Again, this is more letters from Army personnel and commanders saying that Sikhs were good soldiers. Here's a really great article. It was in the Los Angeles Times. It's told about how I had grown up in the military family. My father was a master sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he had served honorably in World War II. And in fact, he was at Pearl Harbor when it was attacked by the Japanese. And he was on the USS Nevada there. My father also told me stories about how he was in the second wave that came in on the island of Saipan when they attacked there. And so that really inspired me to want to join the U.S. military. And it was really a disappointment when I couldn't join. These are some more articles here. This is the rest of that LA Times article that came out. Now, another interesting thing is that I was an expert marksman too, yet the Army wouldn't have me. And here I am with all my medals and shooting awards. I tried out for the Olympics 5 times. The last time in 1984 I was 20th. And again, it's unfortunate, but the U.S. military didn't want to have me, even though I was an expert marksman, and I had a lot of military background and expertise. So I want to thank you for listening to this, and I invite you to visit my website, which is gurmukyoga.com. Tells more about my desire to help with getting Sikhs into the military and integrating Sikhs there in the military. And please write your congressman, your senators, write the President, Obama, asking him that Sikhs may join the military while wearing their articles of faith, turban, beard, and their 5Ks. Thank you for your time. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.